Those who have been lucky enough to visit Taiga at least once in summer and see with their own eyes the greatness of this harsh land will never be able to forget this vast green sea of pines, larches, and spruces. As a sailor sails the ocean, entrusting his life to the turbulent waves, so does a Taiga man, steadfastly walking along the winding paths, where, behind every bump, he may be waiting for danger. For Zakhar Ilyich, the nature of his native land was like an open book. What for an ordinary person would seem a mystery, for an experienced gamekeeper, it is the most ordinary thing. Not everyone can accept Taiga. It has its own laws, and the one who violates them, it punishes harshly and implacably. It is necessary to live in harmony with nature, to love it, then it will answer you in the same way. To the forest, as well as to everything in this world, you need to get used to gradually. Zakhar's grandfather, Platon Mihalich, was a gamekeeper under Tsar Batyushka. From a young age, he used to put his grandson on his shoulders and go with him into the forest. There, he would let him look around, feel, so to speak, the world around him. Each time, he went further and further, immersing the boy in the atmosphere of the Taiga region. Grandpa, can I have a berry?" asked little Zakharka. "Ah, take it, grandson, take it. It's sweet," laughed the old man, watching the little boy devour the tasty lingonberries. "Tay, but this blue one with a carved leaf you must never eat. It's called wolfberry," Platon Mihalich said seriously with a stride. Now, wading through the thickets of evergreen shrubs, Zakhar Ilyich warmly remembered his grandfather's science. Never again would he confuse a poisonous mushroom with an edible one, or taste forbidden berries. For as long as the huntsman could remember, the forest was always in the first place for him. That's why, probably, and family life, he did not get a sensible life. His wife, Alevtina Fedorovna, as his daughter gave him, so after 5 years and died of typhoid fever. The gamekeeper brought up little Karina alone. He understood parental heart, that may be, where that unloved daughter, that deprived the father's attention, and maybe even at all, offended. So she flew away from her parents' nest when she was barely 18. "Hal, I don't want to wander the woods and pick cranberries till I'm old like you. It's not my thing. I want to live in comfort, in the city, in the cinema, and on dates," said Karina before leaving for the city. Her words deeply lodged in the old man's heart, leaving an unhealing wound in it. The girl was right in everything, and the gamekeeper understood it. But on the other hand, she was his daughter, his own blood. Nobody needed me. Young people are always drawn to their own kind. Even in a wolf pack they don't keep old men. They go away and quietly fade away in the depths of the forest thicket. Zakhar Ilyich mentally reasoned. Suddenly, his hearing caught a sound that was remotely similar to mooing. A calf or something? But where would it come from in the Taiga wilderness? Carefully stepping over a fallen tree, the huntsman moved on. The sound was heard further away in the thistle thicket. The beast which was making it apparently did not want to sit still at all, but was circling round the clearing like a skinned colobok. Finally, the beast stopped and sniffed. A branch crunched under the huntsman's foot. In the silence of the forest wilderness, it sounded like a shot from an artillery gun. The beast instantly alerted its ears, trying to determine the source of the sound. At that moment, Ilyich came out to the clearing and exclaimed in amazement, "Ah, so it's a squinty-eyed little fellow. And where is your mother?" asked the huntsman, and instinctively looked around the clearing. But there was no one around. The bear cub, seeing that the strange two-legged beast squatted down, making himself half as big as he was, immediately became bolder and came out of his hiding place. He was not more than 2 months old, and for the first time he saw the world he was to live in at the end of March. His mother was still in hibernation. when he, crawling on her huge body with his brother, impatiently waited for her awakening. It was just a paw away from his mum's breast, so the cubs felt very comfortable. Finally, the long-awaited moment came. The first to emerge from the den was the female bear, and behind her, hiding behind her massive back, were the cubs. A new world, full of unfamiliar smells and sounds, opened before the brothers. Everything around sang, rustled and rustled, millions of tiny paws, wings and claws. The majestic female bear held herself confidently, as if she knew her worth. In the taiga, there is only one king, and that is the bear. In his natural habitat, he had no enemies, but as we know, man is the most dangerous animal on the planet. The cubs, of course, did not know that their fate had been decided long before they were born. The Korshunov twins were given a handsome sum of money for catching a couple of cubs for the birthday of a local rich man. His surname was Medvedkin, so the customers thought it symbolic to present him with the bear cubs on the day of his anniversary. He already had an Amur tiger and a steppe wolf languishing in cages. It was said that there was once an African lion, but he died of hypothermia from the harsh taiga winter. The brothers had been looking for a female bear for a long time, and patiently waited for her to give birth to offspring. At last, Danka Korshunov ran into the hut and shouted excitedly, "Pankrat, they're born! 2! I saw them through binoculars! Round like collarbox and shiny fur. Just what we need!" The brothers prepared for the raid thoroughly. They greased their rifles and took a couple of traps, resembling the open jaws of a shark. Knowing the place where the bear takes her offspring to eat sweet raspberries, the brothers set the traps there. It was a fine summer day, and nothing seemed to portend trouble. The cubs, seeing familiar bushes full of ripe berries, pushing each other away, rushed forward, overtaking their mother. Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced the bear's hind paw. She looked back in surprise and saw that a huge iron maw had a dead grip on her. "Yes, I got her," said Danka Korshunov, rubbing his hands, and took aim. "Wait, you'll scare away the little ones," said Pankrat, putting his palm on his shoulder. Meanwhile, the two little brothers were munching on the juicy berries. They, engrossed in the process, did not even notice how the net was thrown over them and quickly twisted. The bear was tearing with all her might, but the trap was securely fastened to the tree. The poachers loaded their rifles and fired almost simultaneously. The bear stood on her hind legs, wishing to take her offenders to the grave with her in the last throw. But she couldn't reach it. In a couple of minutes, everything was over. While the poachers were fiddling with the carcass, one of the cubs managed to slip away. Frightened by the sight of its bloody mother, it ran away into the forest. Not knowing the way, it dashed through the juniper bushes, leaving tufts of delicate fluff on the thorny branches. By the time he was discovered by the huntsman, the cub had already been wandering for 3 days. He had eaten some tart-tasting berries and had a terrible stomachache. The huntsman, leaning his palm against his yellowish belly, heard that a small revolution was taking place inside him. "Oh, baby, you need to be treated immediately. Come with me," said Zakhar Ilyich, and took the bear cub in his arms. He immediately began to poke his nose into his chest, hoping to taste warm milk. "Oh, little one, I'm not your mum. We'll come home, we'll heal you, and then you'll eat your fill," said the huntsman. In the gatehouse, Ilyich first of all gave the bear cub a rinse, giving him a weakly coloured solution of manganese. The berries that the bear had eaten were poisonous, so he was in pain. The old man looked after the bear cub like a little child, and soon he was on the mend. The bear loved condensed milk, and as soon as he saw a familiar can, he would stand on his hind legs and reach for it. Bears, like people, grow quickly, especially in summer. The huntsman had long puzzled over what to name his pet, but then, having looked at how he was walking across the yard, he laughed and called him Potapish. In time, he grew up and turned into a real lord of the forest. How many cans of condensed milk he had eaten during this time, it is difficult to count. The old man tried to take Potapic into the woods as often as possible. After all, he was a beast of the forest and had nothing to begging in the yards. One day, going round the property, he came across the Korshunov brothers. They had shot a moose and intended to saw off its branchy horns. "What are you doing, you idiots? Why are you torturing the animal?" exclaimed the old man, not hiding his indignation. "Listen, old man, go away from here and spread your mothballs further," replied Pankrat. "Come on, boys, put your rifles aside and follow me. We'll go to the policeman," said the old man dryly. "Ha, you've lost your fear, old man. Now I'll give you a good beating." "You've been begging for a long time, gamekeeper," said Danka Korshunov angrily, and, with a face distorted with anger, moved on Zakhar Ilyich. Suddenly, the bushes nearby rattled, and a huge bear came out. Shaking his head, he staggered towards the poachers. They were numb with horror, and their lips were shaking with fear. Potapic, and it was him, roared menacingly and stood on his hind legs. Danka flew off into the bushes from the bear's strong blow. It was good that it was a slash, or Potapic would have scalped him. But only a few abrasions and scratches. If his mother bear were alive, she would be proud of her son. The poachers dropped their rifles and rucksacks and rushed deep into the forest. They ran like madmen, sweeping away everything in their path. The old man threatened them. "Here, now I'm with the guards. Remember, if you come here again, you'll be dead and gone." Now there were two gamekeepers, Zakhar Ilyich and his godson Potapich. The rumour of the huntsman's partnership with the bear instantly spread all over the district. Those who wanted to poach in the forest were noticeably less, and Potapic was gaining and gaining weight, preparing for the coming winter. One day, returning from the territory, the old man saw a notice sticking in the door. He was to report to the district centre. Why did the bosses need me? Everything seems to be quiet. Maybe they want to retire me? He didn't have to languish in obscurity for long. Entering the office of the chairman of Lezakot Prom, the old man looked at him questioningly. "Sit down, Zakhar Ilyich. There is no truth in feet," said Igor Petrovich, and started to dial a number written on a piece of paper. Then he had a quick conversation about something and handed the receiver to Ilyich. "Hello, Sinitsyn Zakhar Ilyich? This is neighbourhood policeman Dimitrenko from the local police department. 3 days ago, your daughter Karina died of alcohol intoxication. She left behind 2 young children, a boy and a girl. Yes, for the last 10 years, she'd been leading an antisocial life. She drank a lot and vagabonded. No husband, lived with a partner with a criminal record. So, can you take the kids to your place, or we'll register in an orphanage?" The official tone pronounced the district officer. "Of course I will. About an orphanage is out of the question," exclaimed the huntsman, feeling his wounded heart beating frantically. "Well, good. We are waiting for you," said the officer of the law and hung up the phone. Taking a car and driver from the chairman, Zakhar Ilyich drove to the neighbouring district. There, in the orphanage, he saw his grandchildren for the first time, Antoshka and Lisa. The boy was 7 years old and the girl only 4. It was impossible to look at them without tears, skinny and pale. All the way home, Ilyich hugged the children and said, "Nothing, my dear ones. I'll put you on your feet, my poor little ones." It turns out that while their mother was drinking, the children were wandering around in basements, sleeping on heating pipes. Zakhar Ilyich took out his modest savings from a box and bought new clothes and toys for his grandchildren. Anton loved to play football and dreamed of a ball, and Lisa wanted a doll. The old man berated himself for not making an attempt to reconcile with his daughter. She'd still be alive. Hey, after a fight, as they say, you don't wave your fists. Though the children lived at Zakhar Ilitch's house for a month already, but despite the nutritious ration, they looked weak, coughed a lot, and were whiter than chalk. Alarmed, Ilyich took them to the hospital. There, the X-ray of the lungs confirmed the terrible diagnosis: tuberculosis. Apparently, the night spent in cellars, in the company of alcoholics and homeless. In modern times, it can be cured, of course, but, as they said in the hospital, you need a lot of money for this, and gave the phone number of the health centre, which provided sanatorium resort treatment for patients with tuberculosis. Having called there, the gamekeeper grabbed his head. His annual salary would not be enough to pay for the course of therapy. And then Ilyich threw a cry to his friends and acquaintances. Grandfather was trying his best to help his grandchildren. And he did. Local residents brought their last money to save the children. Slowly but surely, the necessary amount was collected. The children were immediately taken to a good clinic for treatment. Thank God for giving me the strength to help the children, Ilyich mentally whispered. But one day, approaching the house, he saw that the lock was broken and the door was wide open. Having a premonition of bad things, the old man rushed to the locker where he kept the money collected for the treatment of children. It, of course, was empty. For the old man, his whole life flew by like a blink of an eye. How can I look people in the eye now? They gave me the money, but I didn't save it, said the huntsman, and, sitting down on the stoop, cried bitterly. His neighbour Pelagaya called him. Why are you sad, old man? What happened? Yes, Pelagayushka, something happened. They stole the money I had collected for my grandchildren's treatment. The president said to put it in the bank, but I'm a sucker. Oh, trouble, trouble, trouble. I saw Danka Korshunov hanging around outside your house. Didn't he steal the money? How do I know now if it's him or not? I'm an old fool. Zakhar Ilyich was nervously rubbing his hat. Suddenly, his godson Potapik came out of the forest to meet him. He poked his nose into Ilyич's shoulder, but he only waved him away. Then the bear grabbed him by the half of his jacket and pulled him behind him. Zakhar Ilyich could hardly keep up with him, not understanding the purpose of their walk. The oblique bear led him to the grave. The inscription on the plaque read, Pelagaya Nikiforovna Korshunova. Potapik looked carefully into the huntsman's face and began to dig the earth on the grave. In a minute, his clawed paw extracted a package, which immediately seemed familiar to Zakhar Ilyich. Unwrapping it, he discovered the missing money. There was no limit to the old man's happiness. Hugging the bear, he cried and stroked its thick brown fur. It is not clear how, but Potapik, by some sixth sense, recognized where the money was hidden. The Korshunov brothers had stolen it. The money given to them by their customers for 2 bear cubs, they skipped out, but they only gave back 1. Serious people demanded the advance payment back. When they learnt that Ilyich had collected money for the treatment of his grandchildren, they stole it in the dark night and hid it on his mother's grave. Insidious plan of brothers. Failed, and for the theft, they face a real term of imprisonment. Anton and Lisa have already recovered and, together with their grandfather, go to the forest for mushrooms and berries. Potapik the bear has matured, becoming a real master of the forest, and soon, apparently, will have his own offspring.